Next up, we have a talk from Sasha. She's going to talk about the how and why of internet.nl. And internet.nl, you guys may know from emails you got from customers complaining about bad scores on internet.nl, or maybe you find it a very useful tool. However you view internet.nl, we're going to hear all about it. So Sasha, take it away.
Thank you. So my name is Sasha. First, I'm wondering who knows internet.nl? Oh, that's pretty good, pretty good. And so in preparation for this talk, I decided to look through the archives that I have of the NLNOG chat channel and find any mentions of internet.nl and use that as sort of a guidance to figure out what I should be talking about, such as, I kept the original quotes in Dutch, internet.nl generates such a headache because they don't know how the real world works. I intentionally left names of this slide, the same person was a lot more positive about us later, and also other people have also said very good things about us. And so I thought it would be nice to come and talk about some of the things we do and how and why. So my name is Sasha. I'm an independent developer. I do a lot of work in internet routing standards, infrastructure. You might know me from IRD or IRR Explorer. If you use the IRR, you use my code. I also am an open source working group coach in RIPE. I have a lot of different hobbies and a personal ASN, of course. I've been a contractor for internet.nl since 2022. I do not work for the government. We're a government-affiliated project a little, but we are a bit more broad than that. Internet.nl is run by the Dutch Internet Standards Platform. It is a collaboration of governmental, non-governmental organizations, also representatives of commercial organizations like the Dutch Standards Board Forum Standaardisatie, but also SIDN, SURF, and a number of other organizations. And our goal is to increase the use of modern internet standards to make the internet safer, accessible, and more reliable for everyone. We do this in the form of meetings that we do with all of these organizations periodically, where we do talks about the internet. But also, one of the things we do there, mostly coming from Forum Standaardisatie and external people like myself, is internet.nl, and we are a standards compliancy testing tool. We are notably not a security test, a common confusion sometimes caused by ourselves. Many of the things we test relate to security, but it is not our goal in itself. If you score poorly, it does not mean you're insecure. If you score well, it does not mean you're secure. We test web servers, mail servers, and client connections. Last year, we ran 1 million tests on internet.nl, which is our interactive website. And also, we run a dashboard with an API for a select group, including government organizations. And we've done 8 million tests there last year. So there's a lot of long list of domains that people run through this periodically. All of our work is open source. Recently, we improved the deployment a lot. Now it takes an hour, not a week. So for people who want to run mass-scale testing, they can run it on their own. And several of them do. There's also some international reuse with different translations, sometimes different standards. And this is also used for things, reporting from the government about the government itself, such as this bi-yearly report about standards compliance by the government, where you can see that some ministries are much better at IP6 deployment than others, Ministry of Defense at the end there, but also different types of government organizations. There is a huge report and everything is public. SURF does some of this reporting internally for universities and higher education. And there's also, I entirely forgot what this thing is called. There's a list of domains run by the national government that they publish, over 1,000 of them, and they also run all of those through all the tests from internet.nl. So this is also all public info, and all of this is based on the standards that we built. And then there's all the internal reporting that a number of organizations do. And I always enjoy seeing actual impact from this, like when we added RPKI a while ago, someone said, do you also see all your customers asking how to make ROAS for all their own space now that internet.nl complains? This is, to me, things that this project is about, like stimulating this kind of development by, we have a very broad target group of people that look at that use our tool, that look at it, and that it's good to see that sometimes this has actual impact. This one I'll translate. The only time my current client said IPv6 was in a ticket that said we have to score 100% on internet.nl, and it says we have to do IPv6 DNS. And I think that's great, because maybe these people wouldn't have cared about it otherwise, but because it's part of our testing tool, we are stimulating the adoption of, well, I was going to say modern standards, but IPv6, I don't know if we can still call it modern. So we test a few different categories: IPv6, DNSSEC, HTTPS, HTTP security headers, and security TXT. For email, DMARC, DKIM, SPF, StarTLS, DANE, and RPKI. Some of these are more well-known here, and I will not go too much in detail, but I'll go into some of the lesser-known ones in a bit as well. But of course, a big question is, what do we actually test, and how do we set these criteria? So let's do a little crowdsourcing. We're going to simplify to good or bad. We actually have 4 different levels for how we assess things, but we're going to keep it simple. Let's say a domain has 3 name servers. 2 of those have an IPv6 address. 1 of those IPv6 addresses is unreachable. Who thinks this is good? IPv6 domain? No one, very good, yes. Definitely not okay. Let's change it a little. Both of them work, but they only respond over TCP to DNS queries. Who thinks we should say good? Oh, I think we need to change this test. We can only say good. We don't distinguish UDP, TCP, either of those is good enough for us. Should we? I'm not sure. If you have strong feelings, we should only flag them if it's UDP, then let's talk later. Let's do a different one. HTTPS with TLS 1.2 configured with TLS, ECDHE, ECDSA, AES 128, CCM 8. Who thinks, yeah, this is fine? Who thinks, no, not okay? This is bad. Almost all of this is good. CCM 8 is even for quite a while not okay. It's a good mode, but CCM 8 compared to CCM has a truncation in one of the authentication tags. I don't even know why this exists. Let's do another one. TLS 1.1 with TLS, DHE, RSA, triple S, EDE, CPC, SHA. Who thinks this is bad? It's actually okay, currently. It's actually okay. This is not my decision. But soon this will change. In the next few months, basically all of the words in this will be flagged as not okay. And how did that happen? Oh, we're going to do another one. A web server IP is covered by 1 BGP announcement. There is no ROA. Who thinks this is bad? Bad? Yeah, okay. More complicated. There's 2 BGP announcements. One has a ROA. It's the more specific one. The less specific one does not have a ROA. Who thinks this is still fine? This is covered by RPKI. Some fine. We currently say not okay. Some people do this, and none of them have been willing to tell us why. I do not understand. We only talk to them through clients. So if you do this and you have a reason, then I want to talk to you later. But basically how we, who decides what to test? We look at ideally clear consensus, existing normative references, and there is also some degree of local bias in this. We do not actually make them up by crowds by polling a few people. I don't make them up myself. So some things we look at are RFCs and best current practices coming out of IETF, CA browser forum guidelines. A big one is forum standaardisatie, which makes or guides 2 resources, which is the comply or explain list, pas toe vleg uit, which is a requirement for governments mostly for newer projects, or streefbeeldafspraken, which I cannot translate. which is should also, it's a bigger deal. It should be applied to, there are standards that should apply to everything the government does. The Dutch National Cybersecurity Center, there's a little bit of legislation also. HTTPS is actually required by law for the government since a while for most government websites, also to a certain standard. And there's also a bit of industry convention. If we know Firefox and Chrome both do a thing a certain way, then that is sort of the standard already. But none of these are necessarily defining on their own. And of course, something has to be possible to test, to be able to test remotely and in reasonable time and without having special privileges, without hurting the target we're testing, and consistent most of the time. Some tests, you cannot get all of these 100% of the time, particularly the consistency. We don't harm our test targets. So as an example, all of our TLS standards, if you're wondering why is triple-DES still allowed, in 2021, the NCSC thought, yes, this is still allowed, but they've recently published a new standard, better standard, poorer design, which is also based on BCP 195, which consists of 2 RFCs regarding new TLS standards, but also recommendations from the CA Browser Forum and existing work from similar NCSCs from a lot of other countries, which I'm listing out to show that there's a lot of work that goes underneath this before we say no more triple-DES. It's not just me. There's a lot of work in figuring out what should the standard be and building consensus for that and finding what are the actual realistic practices, both in the Netherlands but also beyond. I'll translate this one first. Someone said it's one of the latest internet.nl fads. Green check marks, DNSSEC, DANE, SPT, DKIM, and DMARC. And I thought I should maybe highlight some of those standards a bit more because they're not as well known in this community. I assume they meant SPF. There's no SPT. They're also not actually our FATs or latest DNSSEC, which I think is pretty well known, is from 2005, at least some of it. This isn't so controversial anymore. Some people don't like DNSSEC. I cannot help you with that. But it is very widely supported, but there's a lot of ways to misconfigure it. We don't even detect all of them. We do try to check the whole chain down to also other domains. But a lot of what we see here is misconfiguration or incomplete configuration. SPF and DKIM are email standards that allow you to figure out whether an email is authentic from a certain domain. SPF says which hosts can send an email through a DNS record. There's a lookup limit, more on that later. And DKIM does email signatures. So when you receive an email, it contains a signature header. You can look up a public key in DNS based on that and use that to validate whether the person who runs the DNS is okay with this email being sent in this way. For DKIM, we have to work around a little because DKIM uses random selectors so that you can have multiple keys at the same time active. We don't know your selectors. We don't have your email. So we use, as a trick, we request the domain key record under your domain and check if the response is NX domain or no error. If it's NX domain, we know you have no DKIM records. If it's no error, we know there's something. We still don't know if it's valid, but it's the best we can do remotely. And DMARC builds on top of these two, which tells other mail servers what to actually do with your email and also can report on it. So let's say SPF fails or DKIM is not valid, then it tells the mail server to maybe reject the email, and you can do a lot of interesting reporting on this. So these are things we are pushing also for email, for authentication. As I'm sure you're aware, phishing is a huge deal. Let's do a good or bad. How about this form of reporting? Who thinks we should approve this DMARC record? It's wrong, but not for the reason you might think. My opinion is that you're allowed to use FTP URLs. Most DMARC checker tools will actually choke on this. We don't. We allow this, and we should. But DMARC, you can configure DMARC and just say the policy is none on the first line. So sometimes it's not just creating a record, but also having it restrictive enough, which is also something we check. And finally, DANE. Dane basically lets you say in DNS, you should expect these TLS certificates when you connect here. In web, people don't use this a lot, but in email, this is a huge deal because it prevents stripping TLS in between. Web browsers have become very good at being annoying about plain HTTP sites. On email, we don't have that. If there's a person in the middle, they can stop TLS negotiation, and Dane is one of the ways you prevent that. So that's why we have these. Also recently new and raised some questions was CAA, which let you restrict issue of certificates to a limited set of CAs or none. Those two CAA records were not there when I mailed RIPE-NCC through their bug bounty a few months ago. So it allows you to restrict who can receive certificates under your what CAs can issue certificates, or even say you can't issue any. And finally, the HTTP security headers. There's a number of them. Also, this is not an HTTP group, so maybe not so well known. Content security policy restricts what type of content can be loaded from where, such as inline JavaScript, you would usually disable. So this is complicated sometimes, but also very powerful. Recently, a CSP could have prevented a partial RIPE database authentication compromise, I found. So it is a very powerful security measure. Refer policy is also a privacy and security measure that restricts refer headers passed through browsers. Security TXT, I think more people here have been adopting, which has security contact info, which can be hard to find. And finally, there's two somewhat older headers that also deal with various browser exploits. And these are also all recommended, so they don't have a score impact currently, and maybe they won't. When we deal with these standards, you think, oh, a standard, oh, an RFC, that'll be very clear. We can just implement that deterministically and say you comply, you don't comply. Unfortunately, not always. Last year, we put a lot of work into security TXT and raised the question, how do we interpret the field canonical? And the author said it is vague intentionally. Someone wrote a standard and said it is vague intentionally. I spent hours in meetings figuring out how we should validate this field until something was chosen. So yeah, this happens. CAA does, this was my last thing I implemented, so it's fresh in my head. CAA lets you specify reporting if someone requests a certificate, and CAA says no, you cannot. You can report on HTTP or HTTPS, but you can only do it using a protocol that itself says you can only report over TLS. So can you do HTTP? Can you only do HTTPS? I don't know. The standard doesn't know. I currently say no. I say it has to be TLS. Maybe someday someone will email us and complain, and we'll adjust. And earlier I mentioned SPF. SPF has a lookup limit. Almost all implementations of the lookup limit are wrong. So you can refer to other, you can include other people's SPF records. The lookup limit is really complicated for some reason. I did not write it. Our current implementation still has an off by one error. I fixed the last one. So we had an off by two error. Now we have an off by one error in some very obscure cases. We're going to fix this by integrating someone else's tool, by people who did a lot of hard work to figure this out. This is something I've been working on more lately, is having less code. Sometimes people think my job is to write code. It's actually, I prefer us to not have code and to defer more to other existing tools and potentially build on those. So some of our big challenges that we are into, many standards, as I just showed, have rough edges. There are many implementations, both in testing tools and production systems, that are slightly wrong. And also people do very strange things on the internet sometimes. As we make new releases, we check a lot of domains against the current production system and a new one to see, are there unanticipated score changes? But also, what kind of weird things are people returning to us in DNS queries that we may not have anticipated? And also, we have a huge background of people that we communicate to. I think our documentation on our text on the website is about 50,000 words. And we're trying to address anyone from the people in this room, but also people more at CEO level. And we try to give them all enough to go on. And also some standards are just much harder to test than others. Things like RPKI, DNSSEC, they're just like, you just run a DNS query, you just look up some basic data there. They're easy to test. TLS is a lot harder already. Email TLS is a nightmare. Because and DKIM is a little tricky because you can't access the full record. But TLS, which is one of our bigger tests, has no way to tell you what the config is. How do you figure out if a server supports TLS 1.2? You make a connection with TLS 1.2, and maybe you have a connection, and maybe you don't, and then you probably know they don't or do support that. You can do this on web servers pretty easy. They're very tolerant of this. We make a lot of connections. They're fine with it. Mail servers do not like people making a lot of connections very rapidly, many of which look very weird. So I feel like half the tickets that get escalated to me are about my mail server won't get through your TLS test, and I've developed a standard way of dealing with them, which is that the stronger someone denies that they do rate limiting, the higher the chance that they are absolutely doing something, and it's usually the most bizarre thing also. I've had people complain that their domain didn't pass, and it's like, every connection we open, you make us wait for 30 seconds. Like, we only have like a few minutes to run the test, which is fine, you're allowed to do this, but it's not going to be testable in our tool. Also, all of our work is open source. We try to give back to others as well, contribute. Our goal is not just the tool itself, but also the promotion of internet standards aligning with our goals. Recently, I found something sometimes you find very obscure stuff. There's some obscure rule in CA browser forum, rules around root certificates and whether the I don't even remember all the words. The authority cert issuer has a certain field, and apparently no one found this bug for years until I tried to integrate in internet.nl. Got my first commit in OpenSSL, which was 1 byte, with some API that I think almost no one uses. But also we do bigger things. We started writing all of our TLS code to use standard Python testing tooling that is NASO and SSLize. And so I've been contributing to those a lot to get them to meet our standards, but also not have me maintain all of our TLS code and allow other people to reuse the work that we do. We are also not trying to be certain other tools like DNS Viz, Master, IR Explorer, email security scans, SSL labs. We have some overlap with some of these, but they tend to go much deeper into one specific field, which is great. We refer to them a lot. We cross-check. Sometimes if there's inconsistent results, it shows a mistake on our side, sometimes on someone else's side. Sometimes, actually, every other tool is wrong, and I was right. But also we refer to people to this to dive a little deeper into things. Occasionally, people express that they are not fond of our test score criteria, which is also I showed you a little of how we define those criteria. But also, this is not actually a mandatory testing tool for anyone, except some scenarios where for government organizations, or if you work for those, some of it may be required. That said, we do really appreciate feedback. We have question at internet.nl. There's also me, there's also Benjamin running around somewhere, who conveniently I've lost track of, wearing an internet.nl shirt. So we do actually like hearing from you, but it has to be a little substantiated with some views and references, ideally. Also, if you think we're drawing the wrong conclusion, that sounds like a potential bug. But if you think, no, you should evaluate this DNSSEC configuration entirely different, we are happy to hear and adjust. We frequently adjust, especially weird edge cases, based on feedback. But if you're just like, oh, I don't like V6, I don't think you should be testing for it, then I cannot help you with that. There is the one critique I've heard a few times is that we draw people to focus on some specific areas that we currently have good tests for. Personally, if I could choose between the entire government scoring 100% but running on a single big cloud, Microsoft, versus some minor issues, I would rather have the latter where maybe they don't score quite as well, but at least There's more independence. This is one of the things that I'd like us to see addressed in the future. We're also working on a design refresh. It currently looks very 2000s. I have not included any screenshots, I realized, but it's definitely, if you think like, oh, this is a website from the 2000s, you're on the right website. But we're fixing that. And also I've been working on a lot of technical debt. I've deleted a lot of our TLS code and replaced it with external tooling. But also I want to do better database design. I want us to give back more debugging info. Currently there's just too many questions that I have to manually dig into when it's like, we could have had that info already. We know if your mail server sends a 451 that you're rate limiting us, but we currently don't tell you well. And also what I just mentioned about data locality, independence, sovereignty is something that I'd really like to see us test more for. And finally, the scoring model. We currently do 0 to 100%. I feel there's more we can do there. It is not quite harsh enough, and sometimes it is a little too harsh. Something for next year, I think. So that's some of the things I would like to work on. And that's all I have. So thank you for listening.
Very much. That was really insightful, and I definitely have some questions and feature requests as well. We don't have a lot of time, so a couple of quick questions. There? Do you have a question? Or you just listening? Are you just listening, I guess? Are there any questions from online? All right. Then I'd like to thank you again very much, and we should speak later.
Thank you.
Dankjewel. Leuk.
Thank you.